I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of India. May I begin by thanking Martin Griffiths for his briefing on the situation in Ukraine with regard to the protection of civilians and the situation of children. India continues to remain concerned over the situation in Ukraine. The conflict has resulted in a loss of lives and countless miseries for its people, particularly for women, children, and the elderly, with millions becoming homeless and forced to take shelter in neighboring countries. Reports of attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure in recent weeks is indeed deeply worrying. We reiterate our grave concerns in this regard. Children constitute a third of humanity, the most important third, as they are our future. They are also the most vulnerable to suffering, particularly in situations of armed conflict, and therefore need additional protection and care. The conflict in Ukraine is without a doubt severely impacting the 7.5 million children across the country. While the protection of the rights of the child, including their access to education, is the primary responsibility of the national government, the international community has the obligation to do its utmost to provide succor to children affected by the conflict. India is a signatory to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and appreciative of the ongoing efforts, including that of UNICEF, to alleviate the sufferings of the children. We also support UNICEF efforts to scale up its operations. Since the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine, and as the Council, India has consistently called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and for an end to the violence. We've called upon both sides to return to the path of diplomacy and dialogue, and also expressed our support for all diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. We believe that no solution can be arrived at the cost of human lives. Our Prime Minister has spoken to the presidents of Ukraine and Russia on multiple occasions and reiterated India's position. India stands ready to support all such efforts aimed at de-escalation. I should also wish to point out that the impact of the Ukraine conflict is not just limited to Europe. The conflict is exacerbating concerns over food, fertilizer, and fuel security, particularly in the developing countries. It is necessary for all of us to appreciate the importance of equity, affordability, and accessibility on these critical issues for the Global South. Open markets must not become an argument to perpetuate inequity and promote discrimination. India's approach to the Ukraine conflict will continue to be people-centric. On our part, we are providing humanitarian assistance to Ukraine and economic support to some of our neighbors in the Global South under economic distress. To help low-income countries fight against price rise and shortage of foodstuff, India has exported more than 1.8 million tons of wheat to countries in need, including to Afghanistan, Myanmar, Sudan, and Yemen. We hope that the international community will continue to respond positively to the call for humanitarian assistance. India has so far dispatched 12 consignments of humanitarian aid to Ukraine, and at the request of the Ukrainian government, India has also provided financial aid for reconstruction of an educational institution. We stand ready to do more. Let us not forget that the situation has also affected foreign students, including those from India. India facilitated the safe return of 22,500 Indian nationals, most of them students studying in various universities in Ukraine. Even as we are currently exploring options to minimize the impact on our students' education, we appreciate the relaxations made by the Ukrainian government for this academic year in respect of medical students. In conclusion, allow me to reiterate that the global order is anchored in the principles of the UN Charter, international law, and respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states. I now resume my duties as the President of the Council.